Good morning. I've put everyone on mute. Thank you for joining today's session. It's a pleasure to have so many people with us today. There's been so much interest regarding this webinar series, so we're really excited to have so many of you join us today. My name is Olenka Makinwa, and I am at the Delegation of German Industry and Commerce in Nigeria. I sit in our Abuja office and I head the Department Agribusiness. And I'm really excited to open this year's webinar session with some really fantastic speakers, some really experienced advisors who will be sharing about their role in the space of post-harvest losses, what they have been doing over the years, and just to talk about how we are going to approach the topics for the year. As you can see on the screen, I'm not here by myself. We have speakers. We have Zainab Dati, who's a technical advisor at GIZ. We have Charlie Moosman, who's an advisor as well, and Thomas Koenig, who's also a business scout, just like myself, implementing today's session. And we have people in the background like Julia Seitz and others who have been really supporting this webinar series as well. For today's session, today is going to be an introduction to post-harvest losses. Today's going to be an introduction to post-harvest losses. We will be treating a series of topics, which I will briefly share about. But yeah, just to welcome all of you. A bit of housekeeping. I would like you to use the chat function to, number one, introduce yourselves. So just tell us a bit about who you are, what your expectations for today's webinar are, but also what kind of background you personally have. Are you an actor in the value chain? Do you represent a chamber of commerce? Are you a processor? Are you a producer? So what is your personal background? Please use the chat function to introduce yourself. And secondly, please use the chat function to ask any questions. Today's going to be very informative. There will be a lot of information and we anticipate quite a number of questions. So please use the chat function to ask your questions. You're free to ask your questions anytime. We will periodically check into the chat function and see what questions there are. Our speakers might respond to them immediately, or they might address them at the very end. We have reserved time for questions and answers. So yeah, please do ask all your questions. They will not go under, we will treat them. All of you who received the link and who are with us today also signed the consent form. So, of course, the data protection issues that we had to raise from the very beginning, and thank you for agreeing to those and to consenting. As you know, this session is recorded and will be made available on our various social media channels, particularly YouTube. So yeah, please feel free to share the link to that session afterwards, but also follow us on our social media platforms to keep up to date with what we are doing. So that was just a bit of housekeeping. We're going to jump right into today's session with a brief introduction about the Delegation of German Industry and Commerce. I hope you can all see my screen. So today we are starting with our agriculture webinar series for the year, looking specifically at post-harvest losses. Our webinar series started last year, where we treated an array of topics, and this year we have decided to specifically focus only on post-harvest losses. But when I say we, who are we? We are the Delegation of German Industry and Commerce in Nigeria. We're part of a large network of chambers of commerce across the globe. We are located in Nigeria, and we've been in Nigeria for about 40 years. Not for about, for exactly 40 years. We're actually celebrating 40 years at the moment. So we've been around for 40 years. Agribusiness is one of our latest departments. We were established just last year. So we're pretty new and pretty excited to be here. Please excuse, it seems as though my slides aren't responding as they should. At the Competence Center, we treat an array of topics from the webinar series that we are implementing at the moment to conducting feasibility and market studies, organizing conferences and roundtables, supporting German and Nigerian trade through delegation trips, but also conducting training programs, particularly agricultural vocational training. At the moment, we are implementing a project in cashew farming, particularly.
You're
Yes,
kind
ma'am?
of sharing yourself, not your slides right now. It's
Oh,
the
that's
screen of the
strange.
MS Teams that's being shared of
That's
you talking,
that's
not your slides.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Apologies for that. Can you see
Yeah.
my slides now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dana. We are active in the space of vocational training. At the moment, we're implementing a project in cashew production. So we're looking at on the farm training and skills, particularly skills gap that exists within Nigeria. And we're also implementing a food and nutrition security training. If any of these projects or initiatives sound interesting to you, please send me a message afterwards and we'll be happy to share further information. Regarding this specific project, however, that's the monthly webinar series that holds once a month. Today, March, we are looking at an introduction to the series overall, but we are treating various crops for the remainder of the year. Please use the registration form again to sign up for each of those sessions, to be informed about when they hold. They hold on the first Wednesday of every month, always between 10 and 11. So you can already block that time slot within your calendar. And we will be inviting industry partners and stakeholders and along the entire value chain to share about their experiences. We're going to also present solutions to post-harvest losses and what organizations and companies, both from the private and public sector, are doing to mitigate losses. So if that sounds interesting to you, and we know it does because that's why you're here today, please do sign up for our subsequent sessions. We as a delegation, we're not implementing this webinar by ourselves. We have strong support from GIZ and particularly the SDG Market Building initiative. And as I said earlier, I'm a business scout and we've got other business scouts on this project as well. And we're really happy to have the opportunity to collaborate and implement this webinar series together. And finally, these are my contact details. Like I said, we have offices in Lagos and in Abuja, and we're implementing this webinar series throughout the year. If you have any questions regarding the webinar series or regarding any of our other events, either within my department or within any of our other departments, please feel free to get in touch with me. So much about myself and our organization. I'm happy to hand over to Zainab now, who is a technical advisor to the GIZ Project Development Program and provides early stage project development services. I'd like to invite her to the stage now to introduce SDG Market Building and share a bit about what they do. Over to you, Zainab. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sorry about that. I don't know why I didn't expect myself to be next, but I'm ready, I think. So thank you, Yinka, for that great introduction of, what the AHK is up to as well. And I will just go ahead with the project, with my slides so that we can just move on to talking about why we're here. Yes, my name is Zainab. Maybe a bit more introduction. My name is Zainab, and I do work for the GIZ as a technical advisor under the project development program, as well as helping to develop project within the SDG Market Building as well. So I'm just going to upload and share my screen. Just a second.
Zainab, yes. Please turn on your video as well.
Oh, my video is turned on. Can you not see me?
We can see you.
I can see you.
Okay, right. Okay, can you see my screen too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we see.
All right. Please let me know if I'm speaking too fast. I do have a habit of doing that as well. And also let me know if I'm speaking too low as well. Basically, the SDG Market Building is an initiative for investment promotion for green tech solutions in agriculture in Africa. It's still a pilot stage, but right now we are in Nigeria and in Kenya, and I'm representing the Nigerian side. I am the boots on the ground in Nigeria. So let's start with what is the SDG Market Building. Well, I'll start with sort of how it came about. It is commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, or the BMZ, and implemented by the GIZ. Like I said, I am the advisor in project development within this program itself. And what we do is try to identify and develop viable projects in the agricultural sector to promote SDG-focused investments to contribute to a greener technology, greener economy, resource efficiency, reducing waste, reducing hunger, and hopefully creation of jobs and upscaling as well. So how does the SDG Market Building provide any sort of support? So what it does is, support your business in efficient and climate smart green tech solutions. And how we do this is how we do this is because it is good business, right? It is good business, but funding is always difficult, and finding the right solution all at the same time. So what we do is to help you develop, drafting your investment dossier, matching you with tech providers and also financial partners, suitable financial partners, and the support is free. It's your investment, it's your ROI. We don't, apart from our own contribution to development and being able to support any sort of growth within the agricultural sector, we give you free support. We do not provide financing, but we do provide sort of the matching within tech and within financing, hopefully to be able to take off for this project. So is this right for you? If you think if you're within the agricultural supply chain, post-harvest is mostly our focus, and how to increase and improve your production and reduce waste, like I said, agricultural loss, then yes, we would like to hear from you. You can contact us, and then we'll see what we can do. But we do have some criteria on sort of what we're looking at. Sorry, just give me a second. All right. So which are our target groups? We have three. Sorry about that. Okay, we have three focus areas. We look at the medium and large producers or processors, aggregation levels, unions or cooperatives, and medium and large customers, licensed warehouses. When I say customers, medium and large producers, I believe there's a criteria for that. I didn't put it up here, but it helps us to be able to provide sort of substantial aid as well as help. I'll say aid, because aid, people think of aid, they think of money, but because it's also easier that they have sort of an audit or a record of what they have. We do know that we do have some issues with keeping records of our financials or productions at a smaller sort of level, but I also like the fact that for us at aggregation levels, a lot of small farms are within cooperatives, and so that also helps us to be able to support them when it comes to the SDG market building functions. So the countries we're in Kenya and Nigeria, and right now I am in Nigeria, and my colleague is also here in the program, in the webinar, Brian in Kenya. So our technologies that we focus on are irrigation, post-harvest mechanization, and agrivoltaics. Why these three parts? Well, because there is a need to use these technologies and use these opportunities to obviously increase yield, to provide a means to support where we are lacking, because we all know that in Nigeria, majority of our issue comes from the fact that we do not actually have a way to process, store. I mean, we do, but it's not sufficient for what we produce. So there's a lot of waste, like storage. When we talk about storage in terms of post-harvest mechanization, basically, we do not have storage houses, right? Or if we do, we have issues with energy supply. And so part of this post-harvest mechanization in terms of this has to do with storage. Now, irrigation, we're looking at things like drip irrigation, solar irrigation, to help to sort of increase productivity and reduce fuel consumption, reduce water consumption as well, resource efficiency. Agrivoltaics, for us, I guess it will be an emerging technology, dual use of land, provide energy, and also provide greenhouse opportunity and reduce CO2 production. So what is the process summary? Identification of local project opportunity. Basically, it's, you know, we start with a questionnaire where we send to a potential project, you know, a potential project. We send a questionnaire, you fill it out, we do a site visit, we go back and see if there's a business case, right? Then from there, if there is a business case, we produce a project dossier, which obviously with your input as well, let's see how we can make this a viable project, you know, financially viable, which we now put it into our Leverage platform and also connect to other marketplaces, whether it's local, German, international, and see where we can get tech providers who might be interested in investing into your business. The matchmaking happens between local business and tech solutions and providers, as well as access to finance. Now, I know it sounds very short and easy. This is not an easy or short process, to be quite honest, because yes, it takes a lot to get to the point where we are like, yes, we have found a match and, you know, it's going to take off. But we're very hopeful because there's a lot of interest. I mean, there's so many of you on here and then also constant contact. So, you know, hopefully what we would love to see is, you know, implementation of projects at the end of it so that, you know, we will be able to show that investing in agriculture in Nigeria is really very profitable, as well as, you know, everybody gets to play a part in an SDG focused way. And so a last bit, I feel like I've gone over time, but the last bit is the matchmaking. So here is Leverest, which is our platform where you can find our projects. We upload our projects, even as we share with outside partners or within the network of GIZ. We have the Leverest app, which you will have access to anytime to see what projects are on there. That's the website, app leverest.de. And yeah, you can check it out and see what we have right now already, opportunities on it. And yeah, so here are the contact persons. We have Bernhard, who is the head of SDG, Alexander, and myself. Alexander is an advisor on SDG Market Building. And then, yeah, that's it. You can contact us anytime, and then we will be able to see if there's an opportunity working with you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Zainab. And now let's jump right into our discussion for the day. Next, coming up, we have Charlie Moosman. He has a background in agronomy and plant breeding, and he's working on issues of rural development, agricultural landscape, bioeconomy, and food loss and waste. And he'll be taking us through the rapid loss appraisal tool. Over to you, Charlie.
Good morning, everyone. Just trying to share my screen. Could you give me a sign if you can see it?
Yes, we can.
Great, and I'm just trying to shift to presentation mode.
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Charlie Moosman, as already mentioned, and I work for GIZ in the framework of the sector project Rural Development, which is based in Germany, and we operate both from Eschborn and from Bonn. I'm going to talk about the rapid loss appraisal tool, which basically is a tool to assess hotspots for food losses in agricultural value chains. Now, what you see here probably is familiar to you. It's kind of very classical, distinct segments along a value chain. You can call this a food supply chain, a food input chain, or you can call this a value chain. In terms of the quantitative losses that occur, it doesn't matter very much, but there's an indication in the value chain. It matters in terms of value. Losses represent value, and the value of losses can differ quite a bit depending on the segment of the chain where you find them. So we should never forget that it may be profitable at one stage, but it may not be profitable to prevent losses at another stage along the value chain. But where exactly and when do losses occur? Very often we can recognize the symptoms and we may suspect where this comes from, but more often than not, we remain with a lot of guesswork and myth. We may feel, though, that there is a lot to be gained if we can prevent losses, but then again, is it really a lot that we gain, or is it even that we have to pay for it? Causes for losses usually are manifold. They can be thought within some technology options that we employ, for example, at harvesting time, during transportation, or even by adding value through sorting or even product life sustaining packaging. They can be managerial, decisions in procurement, unwise expectations on future sale that lead to overstocking, etc. And they can be behavioral, very often found at the consumer level. People storing too much, rather believing expiry dates than their own natural senses. A throwing away mentality. We all know the feeling if you have visitors and all the plates are cleared, you feel a bit uneasy. Have you fed them too little? Have you offered too little? Are they not satisfied? So very often people tend to have quite a bit of leftovers that then gets thrown out at the end of the day. So it's a big question. Where does it happen? Why does it happen? And what can we do about it? What the rapid loss appraisal tool helps you tremendously with is to raise a dialogue, a discussion around exactly these questions. A dialogue with a view to exchanging perspectives, share insights, and discuss possible action for improvement. Now, the rapid loss appraisal tool is supported by mostly two publications that are online available, a user guide and a toolbox. And the assessment in its nature is mostly qualitative, but it gives you a good idea about the quantities we are talking about, but more an estimation of value that is lost, which probably from an economic point of view is a more motivating call for action than the sheer amount of product that is lost at a certain stage. The assessment provides insights and leverage points for more knowledge gathering, as well as for action to be taken. And from my point of view, probably most important, it starts a discussion about who may be able to do what to remedy the situation. I'm not going to detail here. That can be found in the publications or even with some experts that are around within GIZ on the rapid loss appraisal tool process, but it's probably worthwhile to distinguish the process as such into its major components. There's a preparatory phase. The more thorough it is done, the better the preparation for the next step to take, the better you are equipped. But you also have to be aware that, like in any preparatory phase, you can overdo things. You might want to know even more and even more and even more and never reach the phase 2. because you still circle around in your phase one. So be cautious to get the implementation going and up and running. The second phase is a participatory assessment. It consists, according to recommendation, of 4 major elements that are listed here from 4 to 7. This phase is the most flexible one during the rapid loss appraisal tool process as such. So there is some flexibility here. Elements can be added, elements can be exchanged, as long as such an exchange does not hamper the expected outcomes. During a third phase, there is a wrap-up. There's an analysis of data, there's an analysis of discussion results, there are conclusions and recommendations. Mostly because of the flexibility just mentioned, the rapid loss appraisal tool methodology may be adjusted, but there is a limit to this, and that limit is in the reliability of outcomes. So if you slim it down too much, your outcomes became fuzzy and they are not reliable anymore in the sense of really being sure that this is the hotspot that we are going to tackle. Effort, timing, resources. Well, in general, you can say there is a trade-off between resources put in and time spent on the exercise of implementing the process. So the more people work on it, the less time you might need. That really depends on how much you can do in parallel, particularly during phase 2. And that, again, is not just on the side of you planning the implementation, but also heavily on the availability of stakeholders for these participatory elements. In summary, this is what you gain. You can achieve a common understanding about losses and where they occur. This will be shared between different perspectives representing different stakeholders or different interest groups along the agricultural value chain. Ideally, already you have a decisive call for action that is shared between the different interest groups. So there is a unison opinion on where to intervene and where not to intervene. Sometimes there is already a very clear intention or an identification of options on who does what along the chain. If you can't get that far, then the minimum that you will get is a clear idea where it is promising to dig deeper and continue discussions around the same question. With this, I thank you very much for your attention, and questions will be tackled later, as I understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Charlie. That has been so insightful and interesting already. And I believe that there are questions. There's applause coming from the audience as well. Thank you. If you have any questions, like we said, please use the chat function and we'll be happy to respond to them. But while those questions are coming in, I'd like to hand over the virtual microphone to Thomas Koenig. Thomas Koenig has been with GIZ for a really long time as well, and he started as a development consultant and is now a consultant for development cooperation at DLG. In his current role, he focuses on reducing post-harvest losses and on food waste as well, and he will talk a bit about organizational managerial structures. Over to you, Thomas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Olayinka. Well, welcome to everybody. Good morning. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen as well. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. So yes, again, my name is Thomas König, Business Scout for Development Program GIZ, and on behalf of the Federal Ministry, German Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation, I am seconded to DLG. Yes, as Ola-Inka said, I'm going to talk about the role of management in reducing post-harvest losses. This slide, it could be a kind of handbook of the webinar series that you are going to join or that you are joining right now. This quota FAO has given priority to the prevention of post-harvest losses, particularly through action to reduce losses at the farm and village level. It sounds pretty new, pretty current, important, but this publication has been published in 1977. I'm starting with this slide because I want to highlight that the post-harvest losses thing and topic has been on the agenda for decades. Although we see that the data are still very bad and very serious, so we still have a high rate of losses along agricultural value chains. So in this first webinar series, I would like to talk about management. What does it mean? To my understanding, in terms of reducing post-harvest losses, it means to decide on the right actions at the right time. Okay, looking in more detail, what does it mean? Right action refers to technical equipment. I'm not going to talk about technical equipment. I think you will hear a lot about that in the upcoming 8 webinar sessions. Second point is the right time. That means, in terms of management, to have patience, and that actors along value chains should take time to observe what is going on with the harvest. They have to observe, is the climate okay? Or are there insects coming in? And this observation should be compared with the knowledge that the actors have. Based on that, decision can be made. Based on that, people know, okay, this is going on in my harvest or in my stored commodities. Based on the knowledge, I know, okay, this technical equipment can be used. We have published at DLG a 2-pager which addresses these managerial aspects. The very important point is, or a summary is, a checklist that we provided on this leaflet. Let's take an example. A checklist for the preparation of storage facilities. I don't going to read out this, what you can see on the screen, but this gives a hint on which issues people should look at in more detail. And then you can tick, I've done, it's done, I disinfected or I cleaned the storage room, I tick the yes. So this is about managerial aspects. For instance, it's important, as it is said in the checklist, to sort out the non-storable parts of the product, of the produce, or at a certain stage it is important to measure the moisture of the grains or ground nuts that are going to be stored. In terms of sorting out, the next slide shows that those parts of commodities of harvest that are not storable, but they are good in quality, they can be processed to other products. That helps a lot to reduce post-harvest losses, because new products are made, they are some values are added, and they don't have to be thrown away. The requirements for that is a good sorting and grading. I need processing equipment, I need markets, and of course I need ideas for products and for marketing those new products. The second example is storage, short and long-term storage. I have to check on a regular basis the controlled climate of the place. I have to maintain storage facilities after each filling. And here you can see two examples. On the right-hand side, it's very high-tech, very expensive storage facilities for potatoes. This picture is taken from Germany. In the middle of the slide, you see the diffuse light potato storehouse. So there are various options to have a good storage facility, but for both, in organizational or managerial aspects, it's the same. It has to be clean and the climate has to be controlled on a regular basis. So general recommendations that I would like to give here is disposing of organic waste for those parts that cannot be used in any way should be far away from storage facilities. And again, it is important to take time to look at commodities on a regular basis. It's not enough to put something in a storage place and to expect 3 weeks or 3 months later to get out the commodities with the same quality. It's not an automatic process. We have to look at the commodities on a regular basis. Another point, really important, I have to take lessons learned for the next season. If I realize, okay, birds came in here and there, maybe for the next season I have to close those loops that birds cannot come in anymore. Again, in summary, I try to explain how to decide on the right actions at the right times. And this second last slide, is a sentence that Antonio Guterres mentioned on the occasion of the UN Food Systems Summit in September last year. Malnutrition and hunger and famine are not forces of nature. They are the results of actions or inactions of all of us. So, thank you very much for listening, and welcome to your questions.
Thank you, Thomas. That was so insightful. While the audience is clapping and while they are putting their questions into the chat, I have a very specific question regarding the rapid loss appraisal tool, which I would like to pose to both of you, Charlie and Thomas. I want us to talk a little bit about the loss hotspot analysis, where it talks specifically about relevance and importance of losses. Perhaps you can talk us through why those two questions are important. So the relevance, how many people suffer, and the importance, how much these people suffer, and how you actually go about collecting that data. So we understand that there's various groups that you work with in order to select that kind of information. I would like for you to just talk us through the loss hotspot analysis and why it is so important to get various stakeholders along the various value chains involved to identify those hotspots, and then what is being done with the data that you found and with the analysis. Thank you. Perhaps Charlie, you can go first.
Thank you, Yinka. Yeah, why is this? Or let me start the other way around. If you look at the value chain, and we have seen that at the beginning, you have very different actors along the chain until you are able to reach the consumer. Depending on the product you are talking about, value chains and the economic situation within a region, value chains can be very, very short. people rearing guinea fowls that end up in the roadside restaurants. Or they can be very long guinea fowls being slaughtered, being cut up for delicious pieces, being packed, being deep frozen, being ferried around the country, ending up in big hotel rooms in the capital city. So the beauty with the rapid loss appraisal tool is that it gives you an idea from the perspective of the producer on the area where he or she sees its own managerial decisions taking place. It gives you an idea about the transporter, the problems in transportation, the grading, the packaging, etc., etc. There are middlemen. They also have their own perspective on where losses occur, why they occur, whether they are going to blame the producers for harvesting the product too late, the skin being too sensitive, therefore increasing transportation losses. All those views you get, and as I put it, the beauty then is you are able to get those discussed between all these stakeholders. That's why you employ the various different elements in the participatory assessment. These can be workshops, these can be transect walks, these can be intense discussions with members of an association, be it a trader or a trader association, be it a producers association. It could be with the managers of storage facilities, etc., etc., etc. That all depends on your preliminary phase, where you identify the major stakeholders, where you identify the knowledge groups, where you identify whoever is a major interest group along that particular value chain. So yeah, significance, relevance, these questions. Very often you find, if you read through publications on food loss and waste, the call for action crying out, food losses shouldn't pay. And that illustrates one of the issues. I think Thomas has rightfully mentioned managerial options to deal with losses, but management also looks at economics. And we know, for example, this is the situation in Germany, that we could tremendously improve on cereal storage. Tremendously. We could prevent quite a number of losses. No farmer does that with his storage facilities. Why? Because he puts in more money in closing those lost drains than he will ever get back in terms of value from added product that he can sell. So there are particular cases where you can say it's more profitable to accept a certain loss margin than closing the last, the very last, and the very, very last drain where losses occur. And that's a tragic realization if you are aware that food losses can really contribute to hunger situations, particularly in poorer rural settings. I hope this has answered your questions, Inga, and I'm sure
Absolutely.
Thomas can complement.
Yeah, I would like to add something before coming to the other questions that are popping up in the chat. You ask about the relevant and the numbers. So first of all, I think that the numbers are not very exact about food losses or post-harvest losses. We are dealing with estimations. And this is a bit a critical point, but the estimations around the world are really high for both, for food loss or post-harvest losses and for food waste. The basic statistics that we can use are provided by FAO, divided into food loss and food waste. And for Africa, there is this AFLIS tool, which is also an estimation. But again, we are talking about estimations, but in many countries, what I understand, people are have in common saying that the losses are really high. Another aspect that it shows the importance of it in the Food System Summit last year, and that was a process for more than a year. The prevention of food loss and waste has been taken into the action tracks. So that underlines that at international level, a lot of stakeholders, governments, civil society groups, producers groups, they are aware that food loss and waste is important and things has to be done against that. This is just a brief adding to that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Thomas and Charlie. That has been very thorough and insightful. We have a few more questions popping up in the chat, which I'll just read through. One of the questions by Peter Nahr is, how do you access the Rapid Loss Appraisal Toolbox and User Guide? So they are readily available online, but we will also be sharing access to those, so where you can download them after today's session, as well as the presentations from all the speakers. So we will share a link via email to all participants for them to access those. A question from Kainde Oyeleke is, do you have efficient modularized storage solutions or prototype designs for storage of specific farm produce? For example, storage solutions for typical fruits grown in Nigeria, avocado, cashew, etc. Are there efficient storage solutions? I don't know if there's anyone who would like to respond to that, but perhaps I can quickly take one of the topics that we're looking into within the webinar series is storage solution, cold storage solution, and modularized storage solutions. We will be looking at examples for Nigeria, particularly within our webinar on fruits and vegetables, because there are special storage solutions that are already offered on the market by cold hubs, for instance, or Proto-TP. So those are people who would also be presenting their solutions for fruits and vegetables over our webinar series. And that's the webinar series particularly happening in April. So you might want to make sure that you register for that. Another question.
May I add one point to that?
Yeah,
Inga?
sure.
I agree absolutely. The same thing I know that cold chain activities are going on in Nigeria, but also in Kenya. There is also some Miyonga farms, I think it's called like that. They are it's a mobile service to handle fruits and vegetables in advance right now after the harvest, to prepare them for good storing, and probably avoiding that the cold chain is necessary, but a little bit of processing is being done. So I think there are things going on in this regard. Thanks.
Great. So Charlie has actually already shared the link to the publications, so you can access them via the chat. Thank you, Charlie. Another question that came in from a participant who is in Rwanda, welcome, good morning, is, I would like to know if the rapid loss appraisal tool could help in generating the quantitative data throughout the value chain. If not, is there any tool that could help? So here we are focusing on generating quantitative data. Perhaps you can talk us through your data collection process within the rapid loss appraisal tool. There are just things as roundtables, focus group meetings. How do you go about collecting qualitative but also quantitative data? Thank you.
Well, as I as I said during my presentation, rapid loss appraisal tool mostly generates qualitative data, but this qualitative data also comprises very good estimates of quantities along the different segments of the value chain. What it would involve if you go for exact quantitative dimensions is that you are bound with time of implementation because the product has to move along those lines. Basically, we are talking about post-harvest situation for about a month or two, depending on the situation in the region that you are working with. And the assumption behind the rapid loss appraisal tool was no, we can't have it that time bound because we should be flexible. This is a tool for project implementers to get a quick but fairly accurate impression on where you have the hotspots, where you as a project manager would be able to intervene. Either with facilitating action of people who are already actors along the value chain, or even by supporting interventions from outside or intervening yourself as a project within the frame of the means that you are having as a project. So the short answer is no, it's all qualitative. The longer answer is you get a fairly accurate impression about the dimensions, the quantitative dimensions of the losses. The answer to what would be an alternative tool, usually if you want to have exact quantitative data, it involves measuring what you want to know exactly. So you either collect the losses, sample losses, weigh them, and then also giving it a value. Because as I mentioned in the previous discussion that we had around the other question, having kgs expressed in terms of losses of an agricultural commodity doesn't give you a clear idea whether it's economically worthwhile to pursue, stop the drain where the losses go down. So it's more a question also of economically assessing the value of what is lost. Is that a top-rated product? Is it second quality? Is it third quality? Is it non-usable already before you sort it? These are all questions that are relevant. It's not just the sheer amount. So if you talk about quantitative versus qualitative, quantitative is much more elaborate, has much more dimensions to consider, and probably to be scientifically sound and give you a really added advantage has to be a very thorough analysis, which will take some more time than the rapid loss appraisal tool methodology takes you. I hope I've answered sufficiently. Thomas, anything to add?
I believe so. Okay, great. I have a very practical question. So during the data protection, data capturing during the rapid loss appraisal tool, you meet with various stakeholders and groups. I have a particular question regarding the focus group meetings where you bring together farmers, traders, transporters, processors. Individual stakeholders come with their own objectives, and sometimes they are not in line but clash. What has your personal experience been in getting various stakeholders with differing interests together?
Well, I guess you need to be aware that no matter what questions you are going to discuss that involve different interest groups, different stakeholders, different perspectives, it's also a question of motivating people to share their experience, to share their perspectives, to share their views in a rather polite manner, and using different methodologies like rankings, preference settings, SWOT analysis, you name it. There are plenty of these tools, matrices. You can kind of get a building of trust going among the group. So the rapid loss appraisal tool implementation is as much about facilitation skills in participatory analysis than it is about getting the right results out.
Yeah.
Because the results are owned by the people that generate them. And what the rapid loss appraisal tool methodology does, it supports the people to generate those results. And that also involves building of trust between different interest groups that might not be trusting each other at the outset. That is very true. So there's also the question of diplomacy and mitigation.
Great. Thank you. There's a question that came in from Kainde Oyeleke, and this question is for Zainab. Would your team be interested in exploring a circular economy project in the rural community, specifically farm and food waste recovery and conversion to compost, organic fertilizers? Perhaps Zainab, you can directly respond to that question. Thank you. Or perhaps share about your involvement or interest here.
Okay, so I would say this is really out of the scope of what SDG Market Building does, but I wouldn't mind getting a bit more information about what you're proposing. But yes, no, we're not really involved in waste recovery and conversion like fertilizer. That's not really where we are in. But what I will do is put my email in here. I mean, we'll share the details anyway, but you can now send we can talk about it, even if it's not us. I'm sure there are other GIZ programs that might be interested in this. So all I can do is have a look, and I'll have my head of program also have a look, and then we'll see if it's part of our function or objective. Is that okay? So
thank you, Zainab.
That's my email address.
Her email address is in the chat, so please do feel free to directly reach out to her. So apart from the questions that were asked in the chat, we have 2 raised hands. I'm going to first invite Oppa, whose hand has been raised for a long time. Thank you for your patience. So please do unmute yourself and ask your question. And right after, we will have Shaya ask his or her question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. My name is Opwe. I just want to ask questions concerning cold chain logistics in Nigeria. We know that over 50% of our fresh fruit and vegetables are wasted annually. And one of the major reasons is, number one, lack of refrigerated trucks and lack of good quality storage facilities. I want to find out, do you have any solutions? Actually type that in the chat box to do that. Because if you look at Nigeria, we need over 30,000 cooling trucks. But at present, we have less than 500. Countries like South Africa, they have about 14,000. And in Egypt, they have about 10,000. And here we are talking about post-harvest losses, especially in our fresh fruits and vegetables. The losses are huge, especially after harvest. And we have been able to discover that major contributor to this is, one, logistics is key. There's no way you want to harvest without logistics put in place. Number 2 is storage. Are there solutions that we can use right now to reduce that in our post-harvest losses? And not just the theoretical aspect, we are talking about practical aspect now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ope. Thank you so much for your question. I believe that this question was raised earlier. I'm going to allow Zainab respond before I respond.
Yes, yeah, you're right. It was raised earlier, and there is a technology. It already exists. What we do, like, I don't know if you joined at the beginning of the webinar, but part of what we're trying to do is match farms or associations or unions with technology providers, climate-friendly technology providers, green tech, to sort of reduce this, not sort of, to actually reduce this waste in the forms of, whether it's through irrigation, post-harvest mechanization, including storage and logistics, and cold storage, logistics in terms of, like, transport, cooling transport. These are all things that already exist. Now, the issue, obviously, that we know exists is also financing or even access to this technology, and this is also part of what SDG Market Building is trying to do, is to connect and match you with the SMEs that are willing to provide this, obviously. And, like, we're looking at transport to a dairy plant, we're looking at one-day storages, fast cooling, collecting centers. All of these are different ways. Like, when you look at milk, I know you said, you're talking about fruit and vegetables, but it already exists. It's getting it here and having a way to be able to afford it, and also just to have the technology in a way that, it will be, as opposed to operating at a loss, it will also be beneficial. So that's part of what we do. But I mean, I think Yinka has a bit more information on sort of the specificity of some of these technologies. Also, like, there is the fruits and vegetable webinar day, so that will also introduce you to other providers of this technology. So there is a day where I'm not sure what day it is, Yinka has more information of that. And yeah, for the days that fruit and vegetables will be talked about, and then we'll have solutions that will be talked about from SMEs that provide this. So go ahead, Yinka.
Exactly. I mean, you've taken over my answer already, but like Zainab just said, we will be presenting specific solutions for the Nigerian market that are already on ground to mitigate some of those losses, particularly within fruits and vegetables. Like you said, I mean, statistics are unreliable, but post-harvest losses within fresh fruits and vegetables are between 50 and 60%, particularly for tomatoes. So we will be presenting very practical solutions that already exist within Nigeria for SMEs to take advantage of. Then there was another hand that was raised by Sheye. I can't see the hand anymore, but if you have a question, please ask it. If you're still here. Okay, I think we've lost Sheye, but we've also run out.
Yinka,
Thomas,
may I add something to the question?
Yeah.
Just was raised. When you're talking about access to finance and cool storage possibilities, I think it is, in a general term, it is very important to develop a business case. We are not talking about a charity issue. We are talking about high values that are thrown away, just thrown away. Food losses are basically wastage. And we should think about possibilities, of course, access to finance, but to build economically sound solutions. People who are investing in cold storage facilities, they should make money out of it. So the financial reliability is there. And this is, I think, one of the key points, that these ideas should be developed further. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Thomas. And not just Thomas, thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you so much, Charlie, for being with us today. We've actually run out of time. Our webinars are for an hour, and it's just past the 11 o'clock mark. So I want to do a final vote of thanks to all of our speakers today, and of course, the audience, the participants as well. Today was just an introduction to post-harvest losses and what we envisage for the rest of the year. As I said earlier, we will be treating or tackling various crops, various topics over the duration of the year. We meet on a monthly basis, always on the first Wednesday of the month between 10 and 11 a.m. So please block this out of your calendar. And we will be having private sector participants or public sector participants at each and every session to really offer very practical insights and solutions and share their experiences and potentially share best practices with all of us. We want this to be a really informative session, not just theoretic, but of course, very practical as well. And so we really look forward to sharing all of our insights and experiences with you. Most of you would have registered already. If you haven't registered for the upcoming sessions, there is no need to register again. You will be receiving the links on a monthly basis. Please do share this information also within your network. We believe that post-harvest losses are a really important topic to be treated, and we want as many people as possible to benefit from this. And like Zainab said, we're also very keen on matching you with potential solutions to your specific problems. That is the reason why we're doing this. We're not just here to talk, but we're here to offer really practical solutions that would mitigate losses and reduce food waste. So please do share this information within your network. This consulting and matching, of course, like Zainab also said, is going to happen free of charge. So please don't be worried about that. We are here to support you and your businesses. So again, thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to having you again next month. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Martin. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.